30 plus years, I've seen every type of child grow up.
Instead of giving me what I wanted, she gave me what I needed, which was truth.
Don't let emotions win. Let truth win.
Do your very best, and you should have a lot of fun while you do it. And the better you get at something, the more fun you're going to have at something.
You moms and dads are wired with everything you need to be a parent to a great kid.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. This is episode number 78, and I am your host, Dr. Meg Meeker. Today, my guests are Josh and Christi Straub. Josh and Christi lead the Straub Company and Famous at Home, organizations that use emotional intelligence to equip families and leaders to love, live, and lead well in their marriages, with their kids and with those they lead. Both are fellows of the Townsend Institute for Leadership and Counseling, and together they host the weekly In This Together podcast and lead 22/6 Parenting. Josh and Christi have two fun and feisty kids, Landon and Kennedy, and they recently co-authored their new first children's book, which is wonderful, called What Am I Feeling? In this podcast, friends, as always, I'll share my points to ponder so you can start applying something right away. And as a reminder, don't just download the episodes, click subscribe. When you do that, you are joining my parenting revolution, and every new episode will automatically show up in your subscribe list. I promise you won't regret it. And I'd love for you to write a review on iTunes and let us know what you think. Also, not only are we on iTunes, but the Parenting Great Kids podcast is available in the Google Play Store and on Stitcher. So no matter where you get the podcast, subscribe today so you won't miss a single episode. Friends, do you get sick and tired of hearing your kids argue? Of feeling like your kids are in control of your house? Of feeling tension in your home because your kids never listen to you? Well, I have help for you. My new course, Discipline with Courage and Kindness, is available on my website, and I wrote it because I would have given anything if somebody had advice for me like this when I was raising my kids. It'll help bring order to your home, peace in your home, and your kids and you, I promise, will get along better and be happier. So parents, thanks for listening. This is episode number 78. Stay with us. I want you now to listen in on a conversation I had with Dr. Josh and Christi Straub. So Josh and Christi, thank you so much for being on my podcast today and talking about your new book, What Am I Feeling?
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. We're honored.
You know, Josh, there are a lot of parents listening now who say, well, this is all great and I can work at it. But you know what? I feel like a failure already before I listen to this podcast. What would you say to that parent who feels that way?
Well, you are going to yell. You're going to say things you regret. You're going to mess up because you're human. And what's fascinating about this is that I get to tell stories where I get it right on podcasts like this, but I often get it wrong too.
Yeah.
So, John Gottman in his research on emotion coaching found that if you can get the emotional safety thing right just 2 out of 5 times, that's 40% of the time. If you can just do it 2 out of 5 times, his research found that you can still get the outcomes you're looking for in your kids.
Wow.
So take a deep breath if you're listening, and here's why. Because research shows that a word called repair is the ultimate of relationships. The Bible calls it forgiveness. And it tells us to practice it a lot. So when you do mess up, when you do dismiss their emotion, when you do say things you regret, get down into their level just like you would listening to their emotion and apologize for the offense. Because what you're doing is you're modeling for your kids that you're not perfect and you're not expecting them to be perfect either.
Yeah.
And so it helps model for our kids how to make it right when they mess up as well.
Yeah. That's awesome advice, because you're absolutely right. You know, I've yelled, I've said stupid things to my kids, and you just sort of pull your hair out because you think you're a failure. Well, you know, Josh, I don't know as Christi as well, but I've always appreciated your work and your heart for kids and for parents. And really, trying to bridge the gap that parents often feel between not only their older kids, but the younger kids. They're feeling like, I can't really talk to them. They don't want to talk to me. I can't connect to them. And now in the day of screens, it's worse because kids, it's even little kids will come into my office and they'll be looking at a screen and mom's looking at a screen, and no wonder we have a hard time really connecting with one another. Do you see that in the work that you guys are doing?
Absolutely, we do. Yeah. And, Christi can speak to this as well, even from the adult perspective. But, when we talk about emotions and we talk about getting our kids to understand emotion, one of the big pieces is being able to feel a wide range of emotion, being able to feel sad and being able to feel mad and being able to feel angry or happy, but not just being able to feel it, but knowing what to then do with it. And one of the things that screens do is screens tend to numb out those feelings. And I know, Christi can talk to that too, especially from the parent side, because one of the important things about what am I feeling, our heart is to help raise kids, a generation of kids who understand what they're feeling. And the reason is because emotional intelligence and emotional safety is, from the research, is what we found is the key to getting all the outcomes we're looking for in our kids. Kids who, get married and stay married and enjoy their marriage one day. Kids who find a career and stick to their career, or maybe not even stick to it, but just love what they do. Kids who have a faith that sticks. These outcomes are all linked to the ability to have emotional intelligence. And that stems from who we are as parents as well.
For the listeners who've not heard about emotional intelligence or don't know what it is, can you just quickly describe that?
Sure, yeah. So emotional intelligence is the ability to be able to explain what I'm feeling, know what I'm feeling. It starts with self-awareness. So it's knowing what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling that way, and then being able to manage that. But then it also is others' awareness. In other words, knowing what another person is feeling and why they're feeling that way, and then to be able to have healthy interaction based upon my self-awareness and my others' awareness.
But so many of us haven't grown up in homes where that was even talked about or that was okay to talk about. And I think so often, we typically lump emotions into, there's sort of like the negative labeled emotions like, anger and sadness and fear. And as parents, if we were never told that those emotions were okay to have, we typically don't know what to do with them when our kids present them to us. And so we either punish them or dismiss them, or even, we punish the child for having them versus, we so often focus on the positive emotions, and it comes out of a good place where we want our kids to be happy, but our kids get the message that mom and dad, we want you to be happy. We want you to live a happy life. And when they don't feel that inside, when the feelings they feel inside their little bodies aren't congruent with the messages that they're being heard from mom and dad or at school or in the home, they don't know what to do with that. So often they start to hide them, and they stuff down those feelings that they feel are bad feelings to feel, as opposed to growing up in a home or in an environment where a feeling is just a feeling. It's something that's talked about. It's something that they're able to express. And then we as the parents get to be the ones that show them how you can feel those feelings and deal with them within boundaries in healthy ways, because they're going to feel them, but we can't teach them that suppressing them is the only way to manage them.
Well, if parents have grown up, as you said, in a home where they really were never encouraged or even allowed to feel, they'd start crying and mom or dad would say, go to your room, or they get angry and mom and dad say, go to your room. But I think that as parents, what I'm hearing you both say is that first and foremost, we have to be comfortable with our own feelings, knowing what to do with those feelings, and then understanding that our feelings can't control us. And it's only when we're comfortable with ourselves that then we can teach our kids how to be comfortable with their emotions, because what we know, we communicate to our kids, and we repeat what we've grown up with. And so and that's why I love that, Josh, you wrote the book Safe House before this book. And, the subtitle's How Emotional Safety is the Key to Raising Kids Who Live, Love, and Lead Well, where you're really kind of walking parents through that process. So Safe House and this book are just, they really go hand in glove, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And we wanted to put a book together where, what we find is just as parents, you want something that you can sit down with your kids and just do. And the children's book is a way for parents to be able to sit down with their kids without having to, a lot of parents just don't have time to read bigger books or, understanding the why or behind it. But this is a way to get parents and put parents and kids together to get kids to be able in a practical sense to start labeling their emotions and then to be able to see maybe what their friends are feeling and why they're feeling that way. But it starts with kids who can label what they're feeling. And that's really the basis for this. When I would counsel juvenile delinquents, we started I got my early start working with literal child people, 12-year-olds who were convicted of rape and murder and things like that. And, the first thing that I would do with these kids is I would have to give them a feelings chart because a child who's offended another individual, at even the least matter, whether it's bullying or rejection or whatever that looks like, when we sin against another person, if we don't have the ability to know what we're feeling, it's very difficult for us to step into the shoes and ever show remorse for what another person might be feeling. And so it always starts with, how am I feeling? Self-awareness is critical for empathy. It's the foundation of being able to develop empathy. And so if we can help our kids understand what they're feeling, you're literally wiring your kids' brains for relationships.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive into what am I feeling. And as you're talking, I'm thinking, boy, this is going to be as good for parents as it is for kids. Because, if parents are used to sort of stuffing their feelings or going numb by having a difficult life or, a lot of trauma in their lives, or even if they haven't had that, but they're living on screens where their sensitivity is dulled and they've lost communication skills and they live in this weird, isolated world. This is a book that is going to really help parents as they go through too to discover what they're feeling, along with helping their kids understand what they're feeling. So in the book, you have different characters who are doing different things. Can you talk to us about Sam and Alex and Hudson and how you sort of unravel different feelings in this book?
Well, and I think that's a great point, Meg, because I think, and I want to speak to the parents too. I mean, all of us as adults who are listening, we have often used self-medicators to numb feelings in order to survive. And I think often we can, talking about emotions and feelings, we get really uncomfortable. Some of us get triggered even. And it's like, I just can't go there. I don't want to go there. We're so much more comfortable numbing feelings. And we've learned that, whether it's busyness, whether it's overworking, whether it's alcohol, whether it's screens for sure, we're using them to numb feelings. But the good and the bad is that they numb the more negative feelings, the ones we would label as negative, but also the good ones. They numb joy and happiness, curiosity, passion. And so this is where I think as adults, we have to start to be really honest, is the things that we've used to self-medicate, they've allowed us to survive to get to this place. I know for me as a young mom, I used screens and I used comfort food to just get through some really hard years. And I know that they served me to get me through. But now I'm on the other side of some of those survival years as our kids are getting older. And I'm realizing those things that I turn to help calm and soothe the pain, to numb emotion, they're not serving me as well as they once did. And now it's time to look at those and say, okay, maybe I can start feeling again. And I get that, even as, fairly well-adjusted adults, whether we've walked through traumas, which is very real, or we've walked a human life. We will be wounded and there will be pain. But if we start reacting to our kids' emotion in the same way that we feel it, like so often, if you grew up in a home where sadness was prevalent or anger, you will likely probably feel that within you more often than another person. And when you start to see your kids feel those feelings, it's like, shut it down. I can't. You won't live the way I did. No, you will be happy. And that's where kids get this message of, I guess I have to be this. And those other feelings I have to shut down or dismiss. And so in the book, Sam is afraid to go to school, and he's walking into, he doesn't know why and he actually doesn't even know what that feeling of fear is. He doesn't have a word for it or a label for it. He just knows he feels flippy in his tummy. His cheeks are hot and red. And the flippy in his tummy came from our son, Landon, who was a couple years ago really afraid to go to school. And we noticed a total change in his countenance, his demeanor, his personality was even changing. And he would beg us not to go to school. And one morning I just said, buddy, what do you feel like? And he said, I feel flippy in my tummy.
I love it.
And it was like, that's it, bud. That's what fear feels like in your body. And this is the level we have to start to address kids with, and when it comes to emotions and feelings, because they don't have a label. They don't know orange is orange until we teach them that color equals orange. Same thing as this is what, joy feels like in your body. You kind of want to dance and almost explode. That's joyful. Or sadness, when you just feel like you want to crumple in and your face goes downcast. That could be sadness. And so when Sam goes to school, he gets to meet these different characters, which are just kids in his class who are happy to be feeling a different feeling. And we start by just as he introduces or interacts with those characters, he sees Alex with his fists all clenched and his teeth clenched and his shoulders are back and they're strong. And for a kid, that could be super threatening because I don't know, what is that? It just looks scary. But when you can start to develop, that's really the basic building blocks and the foundation of empathy. But to see in that little boy, that's anger. And his anger probably has nothing to do with me. In fact, in the story, his whole block tower is totally demolished in front of him by a kid who just doesn't care. Right. And is oblivious. And yet, anger, he makes another little girl cry, Sophie, and you see sadness in her. And so we tried to, in the book, make it as basic as possible, but just what it looks like, what in a face and in a body, what a feeling looks and feels like. And so often, even as adults, we don't do a great job of seeing what that looks like in another person.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. As I think back to my own life, I was sad a lot of my life. And then when I had kids and they would be about the same age that I was when I was sad, I couldn't deal with it. I was like, okay. And this is going to go on for years. I got to nip it in the bud. And that had nothing to do with them. That was all me. So I think that, it's really hard for parents to deal with their kids' emotion because it triggers something in us. But then also, we often don't know what to do with them. And that's why I kind of want to just go back to Landon for a minute. So because that's really common for parents. I've got this young child. They're afraid. They don't want to go to school. Then what do? Do you say, just go to school? Do you find out if there's something in school that they're afraid of? There's somebody that's poking their pencil in their arm all the time. Or what did you do at that point when you identified his fear feelings?
Yeah. And for us, it was a hard one. Because just like you said, Meg, that triggered something in me as the young child who was afraid of school as well. And so this just sends off alarm signals. And at that point, let's be honest, we get irrational, right? We go crazy. We become that parent, right? Or we might be able to self-manage enough that we don't go ape crazy on someone, but you feel it. And we did have to have meetings with the school counselor and the principal. And we did end up in that situation. There was something going on at the school and it made everything make sense. that there was a situation happening at school that had justifiably made him very afraid to go to school. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up pulling him out of school. And he was placed in another school, and he has done so well since mm-hmm. then. But that was one of those triggering, painful, fearful, and you're so confused as a parent because you can't separate your own emotions from theirs. But one line in the book that I think is my favorite, and it's repeated throughout the book, is a feeling is just a feeling. It's not in charge of you. Mm-hmm. And I think if that's the approach that we can have toward feelings for ourselves, but also our kids, we can start to feel them and also look at them without the fear of this is going to pull me under, or this mm-hmm. is going to, the sadness that you felt as a child. If my child feels that, this is the way the life is going to be written, right. As opposed to it's just a feeling of sadness. It's just a feeling, but it doesn't have to be, and it doesn't get to be in charge of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that I, just to speak to that, Landon was in pre-K at the time. And so it was easier to pull him because of the year that he was in. Now he's in school. And just this morning, great example. He's afraid to go to school today, because he has writing, and writing is the subject that he just doesn't want to do. And when I tucked him in bed last night, he's talking about dreading going to school today because of writing. He wakes up this morning, he's dreading talking about writing. And so I literally sat with him. If you could picture it, I'm fixing his hair to get him ready for school. I'm sitting on the toilet seat as I'm fixing his hair in the bathroom. And I looked him in the eye and I said, "Tell me what's going on." And he's able to put language to what he's experiencing, because kids feel in the right side of the brain. And so when we ask questions of our kids, a lot of times what it does is it begins to uncover what's really happening. And what that does is it puts a language. It connects the left and the right side of the brain. So you're literally wiring your kid's brain to put language to what they're experiencing and feeling. And he's afraid of getting it wrong. He's afraid that he's going to get it wrong. And so ultimately, when he's able to verbalize that, I can look him back in the eye and say, "You know what, bud? I have some hard things to do today too that worry me, but I'm going to step into them and I'm going to do them. And I might get them wrong, but I'm excited to see what I learn as a result. And so I can't wait to see what you learn today." And so what you're doing is you're connecting with him and you're helping him in a way to put language to what he's experiencing, but then sending him out and saying, "You go be brave, and I can't wait to see what you learn today. I don't care if you get it wrong, but let's go learn something together." And so those are practical ways. If you can imagine getting into their eye level, no matter how big or small they are, getting into their world at eye level and just connecting with them and asking them questions. That's one of the practical ways that you can do that.
But Josh, not to just pat you on the back, but I mean, you are a fabulous dad. But what you did there too is that you shared your own emotion. And I think that's the other question. It's is our kids free to share emotion with us, but are we also modeling that for them? Do they know that mom and dad feel just as much as they do? Do they know that mom and dad get afraid sometimes? We get angry. We are disappointed. We're frustrated, or we're jealous even. But I think what's super important to recognize is we can't, the importance of sharing emotion and modeling that for our kids, that they get to be a part of our inner world, but that we as the parents need to be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. So their kids don't carry the weight of our emotions. They're not there to hold them for us or support us. We still need to be the bigger, stronger, wiser, kind ones. Always, but still modeling for them that we feel the whole range of emotion, and that's healthy. That's what we want for them as well.
Mm-hmm. That's scary, and it's hard, because I think a lot of times, if, for instance, parents see their child having a certain emotion, like being afraid to go to school, it takes time and emotional energy to sit down and say, "Okay, what's going on, and why do you think you're afraid? And how can you respond? What can we do? How can I encourage you to just sort of walk through that fear?" And I find a lot of times what parents will do is A, they don't have time to stop for the conversation because everybody's so busy. And then B, we shut kids down and say, oh, you just got to go to school anyway. Mm-hmm. You're just going to go to school anyway. That's the way it is. Instead of sort of trying to figure out what's going on, because I have had some older kids, junior high and even high school, where life is too tough at school. And I say, you need to change schools. Yeah. So, I mean, but at least acknowledging, I'm really scared here and this is what I need to do. Parents, I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Josh and Christi Straub. Parents, I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Josh and Christi. We need to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more of my conversation with Josh and Christi Straub. Third Love uses data points generated by millions of women who have taken their Fit Finder quiz to design bras with breast size and shape in mind. The results? A perfect fit and premium feel. Simply answer a few questions to find your perfect fit in 60 seconds. Then once you receive your bra, you can wear it, wash it, and put it to the test for 60 days. If you don't love it, return it, and Third Love will wash it and donate it to a woman in need. It's all part of their 100% fit guarantee. This is hands down the most comfortable bra you'll own, with straps that won't slip, tagless labels, and lightweight, super thin memory foam cups. They even have a line of incredibly soft and breathable cotton bras. Friends, I will tell you, I love Third Love bras. Their straps don't slip. They are the most comfortable bra you will wear. You have to try it. I wear Third Love bras, and I will never wear another type of bra. Third Love knows there's a perfect bra for everyone. So right now, they're offering my listeners 15% off your first order. Go to thirdlove.com/Meg now to find your perfect fitting bra and get 15% off your first purchase. That's thirdlove.com/Meg for 15% off today. I can hear some parents out there listening saying, oh, particularly dads. I don't know why. I shouldn't pick on dads. Oh, come on. I don't want to make a sissy out of my kid. I don't want my kid to be sort of stuck in their emotions and saying, well, I can't do anything today because I'm really sad. I'm going to go back to bed. So I think it's really important that you help your kids know what to do with certain emotions. Would you agree?
Yeah, and let me speak to that because I now speak to Joint Special Operations Command, Army Ranger officers, their spouses, on emotional safety. And, these are the guys that are doing, they're going overseas and they're defending our country. And the very thing that they're taught to turn off to survive on the battlefield is the very thing they need to turn back on to survive when they get back home. And so I work literally with the toughest guys in the world. And it's on emotional safety because these guys understand that they train all the time to get to shave milliseconds off of their airplane jump times. They want to get better at who they are, not just on the battlefield, but they want to get better at who they are as human beings. And the research shows over and over and over again that a person's ability to come through under pressure is linked to emotional safety. So let me speak to the dads for a second. Who do you want? Let's go to a baseball game. Who do you want standing at the plate? It's 3-2 count, Game 7 of the World Series, bottom of the ninth. You're down by a run and there's a man on third. Who do you want at the plate? You don't want your home run hitter who's going to hit a home run, who hits the most home runs, but he's 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position. You want the guy who's hitting above 300 with runners in scoring position and who can come through under pressure because he's standing there in that moment, not worried about what other people are going to say about him, not worried about how much money he's going to lose, what his dad's going to think of him, what his mom might think of him if he screws it up. But he's actually in the moment remembering the exact pitches that this pitcher, because he studied the pitcher, he's in the moment, he's there. That's why the research over and over is linked to these things. Even and I can talk about research all day long. I'll give you one last study. Google wanted to do a they wanted to study their hiring process because they hire for STEM skills. They hire for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So if you're really huge on academics, it makes sense. You want your kids to know the hard skills. And that's what Google was hiring for. And so they wanted to test that hiring process. And so what they did was they looked at their most productive teams within Google to see what was impacting and making them so successful. And what they found was that among their most successful teams within Google, STEM skills came in dead last.
Wow.
What came in at the top, number one among those teams that were most productive was emotional safety. Number two was emotional intelligence. And number three was empathy. And it caused Google to change their hiring process to focus on soft skills in the hiring process more than they focus on the hard skills. Because what they learned is that you can teach hard skills. What becomes difficult is how you interact with people. And do you champion other people's ideas without putting them down or bullying them? So we're seeing this across companies across the board, that soft skills, emotional intelligence matters. And it doesn't matter how hard you are. King David was a man who killed bears and lions and also wrote poetry. So let's start talking about masculinity and true masculinity and the ability to conquer your emotions. As Proverbs says, controlling your emotions is better than capturing a city.
So conquering emotions doesn't mean shutting them down. As I asked you to describe emotional intelligence, I just need to take a moment and ask you to describe emotional safety, because there are a number of listeners that might not have read Safe House. So can you describe what emotional safety is, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we describe emotional safety is that it really is the posture from which we parent or do marriage or anything. I mean, emotional safety is the posture from which it means that you're not punishing someone else's negative emotions when they have them. It means that you're not dismissing those negative emotions. And it also means that you're not minimizing those negative emotions. What it means is that you're entering into their world and trying to understand why they're feeling the way that they are. Because so often in our culture today, we have emotional bullets being shot at us all the time. I mean, from advertisements to bullying to peer pressure. I mean, think about all the things that your kids experience when they go to school in a day and the pressures that they're experiencing. If they come home and they're being rejected and shamed for what they're feeling at home as well as outside the home, they're going to go somewhere to find safety. They're going to either numb those emotions or they're going to go somewhere else to find safety. The most extreme form of this is gangs. I mean, you're not really safe in a gang, but at least kids who enter into gangs, they feel valued, they feel affirmed, they feel like they're being heard, And so we as parents want to be that for our kids, that when they are overwhelmed, we're entering into their world and we're understanding. If I can describe it in one sentence, it's in order to be understood, we must first understand.
And we need to be secure enough to allow them to feel, to allow them to express those feelings. But then we have to go further, and that is, okay, this is what you feel, but now you need to figure out what you're going to do with it, because it cannot rule you. And I think a lot of times parents trying to be good parents think, well, I want to be empathetic with my child. They're very angry, so I'm going to allow them to let it rip. And this is very destructive. Can you talk now about, let's say you've helped your child identify, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm lonely, I'm afraid. Then at that point, where would you take the child? How do you teach children then to figure out what to do with those feelings so that the feelings don't overwhelm them?
Right. And I think that's where we all get stuck, right? Because it's like, what do I do with this child? And I take a kid who's angry. I literally just had this conversation with our daughter 2 days ago, because so often girls, especially, polite, nice, you get the message, be sweet, be kind, be thoughtful.
Right.
Anger is a bad feeling for a nice girl. It's a feeling that we must shut down. That's the message that's received. So often it comes out in tears. So often it gets confusing even as a parent because it's not coming out the way it's felt in a child or what the core emotion is. And so we got down to, she was angry. It was coming out in tears, and it was I said, honey, I want you to understand that it's okay to be angry. I'm not upset with you if you're angry. Mommy gets angry. But what you can't hit your brother, kick the dog. I mean, we have to set boundaries and limits on what's inappropriate for how we express it. But we also need to get the energy out of us. So often, even in therapy, you'll do anger work where you're hitting, those foam mallets on a foam blick because you have to transfer that energy somehow. Some, adults go for runs, they go to the gym, but we need to do the same thing for our kids and offer them ways to get that energy out of their body. And so for her, I said, this pillow right here, it's like a big pillow on top of an ottoman. I was like, pound it. I would hit it. And they kind of laugh like, ha. I'm like, no, really. Hit it.
Yeah,
hit it as hard as you can. But I don't want you, it's not okay to yell at mom or your brother or to say disrespectful or unkind things, but you can hit that pillow, girl, as hard as you possibly can. And I encourage you to do it. And it's amazing. I mean, just for us as adults, I mean, when we slam car doors or cupboards when we're angry, I mean, it physically has to come out of our body somehow. And we have to allow a way to tell our kids that's good and it's okay. You can go run laps around the backyard as angrily stomping as you can. And then we're going to come in and then we're going to talk about it because there's a root, there's reason there's some offense, there's some hurt that caused the anger. But first, I think especially to calm and soothe the brain of a child so we can get onto that back to rational, level-headed thinking, they've got to get the energy out. And the same thing with crying or sadness, for example. I mean, so often we don't let them cry because it's inconvenient or it's loud and it's dramatic. But to let them cry, that emotional release. And again, if it may require, that may trigger you as a parent and that may be too much. And that's okay for you to say, this is, honey, I respect that you are throwing, a lot of tears out right now. But I need you, can you just go sit over here in this room and I will come and attend to you in a few minutes because sometimes as parents, that's so overwhelming. It's like PTSD. Like we just can't deal in the moment. It's too much. It may affect the other kids or the rest of the family as well. And so putting those boundaries on it, what feels appropriate, I would say this is the best for you, but also for the rest of us. You may need some separation. And that's where but it's not this punishing, go to your room because you're crying. It's you need to get it out. But right now it's just too loud for your brother or for me. And so I want you to go to your room. I want you to cry and I'm going to come in and I want to talk to you and sit with you in a little bit.
If I can, I wanted to, if you can think of it this way, like labeling certain places in your house as safe spaces, if you will. And I hate the word safe space just because it's gotten so politicized in our culture, but where you have rooms that are, you can almost label them as emotions. So maybe you buy a punching bag for your son or for your kids. And when they're angry, they have this safe space in the house that they can go and they can punch the punching bag when they're angry. Maybe it's another room that, if they're just crying and they need to get the tears out and they're screaming and crying and they just need to go and do that by themselves for a minute before they need to talk about it, there's a room they can do that in. But then also a room where, like our dining room has a stage in it where our kids have dance parties. And that's the room where we have fun and joy and laughter and we have a blast. And we know that room is it's equated with fun. And so just labeling different rooms within your home is one practical way to say, you know what, if you're feeling this emotion and you need to get this out, go be safe over there and do that. You need to get it out. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, the safe spaces in your house. I think, too, from a parent standpoint, a lot of parents, when their kids get angry and they slam doors and they're yelling, a lot of parents get very upset. I think because they feel like, what am I doing wrong as a parent? If I were a better parent, you wouldn't be having this temper tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
And to realize a lot of times it has nothing to do with you. So depersonalize it. And if you're having a hard time listening to your child's anger, there's nothing wrong with you removing yourself and say, you know what? You need to just sort of get rid of some anger. And like you said, Christi, we're going to regroup in about 10 minutes here, but to take yourself out of it so that you don't overreact and escalate the whole situation.
Oh, that's it. And how many of us, like just exactly what you said, it becomes about us. It's not even about the child. If you could actually just sit and watch your child have a temper tantrum, firstly, it's kind of comical. Second of all, you've dissociated yourself. But so often as parents, we feel out of control when our children are out of control because we have clearly, in whatever the not enough messages in our head, we haven't disciplined you enough. You know, you don't respect me. You're not going to be responsible. And then we go down this line of time of that you're going to be, you're going to end up in the maximum security juvenile detention center one day. And it's my fault. It's my fault. What if we can just look at them with the grace of that's a big feeling in a little body. Their feelings are just as big as ours are. Just as my reaction to you feeling sad or angry or whatever, my reaction is just as big as yours. And I can just let you feel that thing. And then when we can both rationally talk about it, because so often, and I would just, for all of us, this is a constant work, but why does that trigger me so much? Why does his anger, her sadness, his fear, her, whatever it is, certain things like, and I'm sure in each of your kids where it's like that, I can deal with her loneliness because that doesn't trigger me. It's funny, but it might trigger my husband. And to just take a pause on that, you don't have to figure it out or answer it, but just to be aware that when this particular child, because they're all different, throws out this, it makes me crazy. And I don't even know why it makes me crazy, but I just need to sit with that as opposed to reacting. We get in these cycles of just, he does this, I react with this. And it's typically anger or we just shut it down, in some way. But to just sit with it and just be okay that really gets under my skin. And I don't know the answer right yet, but I think that's worth looking at for a little while longer. It's
tough to do. I think it's really tough to do for young parents with young children. I mean, with young children, because you're tired, you're irritable, you're hungry. And I remember last summer, this is the joy of being a grandparent. My 5-year-old, or she was 4 then, granddaughter just had a meltdown. I took her up to my room. I sat her on my lap, and she probably sat there and just cried for 20 minutes. And I was thinking, okay, when's it going to end? But it didn't bother me because I knew, this is a release of emotion. She's really frustrated. And then it settled down and we went on and had a great rest of our day. But it was so much easier for me because this time around, I recognized this has nothing to do with me. And I wasn't as tired as her mom, my daughter. And so it's just, you just sort of get how to manage these things. But I think that depersonalizing them and realizing that, I'm not a really bad parent and they're not going to end up in jail when they're 18. And parents always jump to jail. I don't know why. I have talked to so many parents. I know he's going to end up in jail. I said, he's 8, and he's having a temper tantrum, or he's 16 having a temper tantrum. Guess what? Teenagers have temper tantrums just like 3-year-olds, but it doesn't mean he's going to jail. So anyway, just even to infuse a little bit of humor in there can really be helpful. The book is What Am I Feeling? It is a fabulous book. I will tell you, I'm going to go through it with my granddaughter and then with my grandson, because I think it will help me. It'll help our relationship, but hopefully it'll just help her get an emotional vocabulary to sort of say, this is what I'm feeling, then teach what she does. Well, Josh and Christi, you've written a fabulous book. For those who are not familiar with Safe House, I would encourage you to get a copy of that too, because the two books together can really enlighten a parent and open your eyes to what we as parents feel, how we impact our relationship with our kids, and then how we can teach them to feel and then to act on those feelings in a very healthy way. Your book is What Am I Feeling? And it's fabulous. I'm going to go through it first with my granddaughter and then with my grandson. And I really look forward to that. It really helps parents and kids grow closer together, but to understand and help kids deal with their feelings. If anybody out there is not familiar with Safe House, it's a book for parents, and I highly recommend that you read that and read the two in tandem. Josh and Christi, how can people find out more about the work you're doing, your podcasts, and so forth?
Yeah, if you could check out drjoshandchristi.com, or you can also check out inthistogetherpodcast.com. In This Together Podcast, we have a podcast called In This Together because we're literally doing this marriage and family and parenting thing together. So inthistogetherpodcast.com or drjoshandchristi.com.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. You're always so informative, and you open our eyes in a way that a lot of other psychologists and people can't. So thank you so much, Josh and Christi.
Thanks for having us, Meg.
Yes, thank you for having us.
And here are my points to ponder. 1, help your child put words to his feelings. You know, all children feel a wide range of emotions, and some are very intense. It behooves parents to help children identify those feelings and put a name to them. Even a 2-year-old can learn to identify anger versus sadness. Often parents react to a child's feelings rather than help the child learn about his feelings. When a parent helps a child understand what anger, sadness, and worry feel like, for instance, then you can help the child put a word to that feeling. And when children can learn to do that, they begin to control themselves better. It's critical, however, when you're doing this, to keep the process simple. Don't overspeak to your child. Don't explain to them why they're having their feelings, what they need to do then, where the feelings are come from, or go into depth. Just keep it very simple and not overspeak to the child. Many times parents want to explain to children where their feelings are come from and why they're having the feelings and what their feelings mean. Don't do this. Simply say, okay, the feeling you're having now is anger or sadness or happiness. 2, teach your child that feelings don't need to control them. You know, often children feel overwhelmed by their feelings, and this makes them more anxious. Once they can learn to put a word to the feeling, then they're able to see it as just a feeling, not something deep inside that's going to control them. Anxiety in particular can make children feel that it has control over them. This makes parents feel that way too. That's what anxiety does to you. Parents can help children feel that their feelings are intense, but they don't need to be in charge of him. 3, help your child separate feelings from behaviors. This is a critical life skill, and any parent can begin to teach a child even at a very young age. For instance, if a 3-year-old bites another child because he's mad, simply telling him feeling angry and wanting to bite is okay, but you can't bite when you're angry. You can be angry, but you can't bite. You can't hit. You can't say mean things. Even a 3-year-old will get that. Or if you're with an older child who suffers from anxiety, for instance, you can really help your child understand that he can feel anxious, but still go to school, still play with other kids, or whatever else he feels he can't do because of the anxiety. I want to thank my guests, Dr. Josh and Christi Straub. You can listen to their podcast, In This Together, on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Also, you can find out more about Josh and Christi at joshuastraub.com. Their book, again, and I encourage you to check it out, is What Am I Feeling? Let's recap my points to ponder. 1, help your child put words to their feelings. 2, teach your child that feelings don't need to control him. And 3, help your child separate feelings from behaviors. Friends, I want to iterate again. Go to my website, megmeekermd.com, and check out my course, Discipline with Courage and Kindness. And remember, until next time, great kids are raised, not born.
Hey, this is Bobby, producer of Meg Meeker's Parenting Great Kids podcast. We hope you've enjoyed listening to episode 78, helping kids identify and express their feelings. And thanks to you, Dr. Meg's Parenting Revolution has grown to over 3 million downloads. You can like Dr. Meeker on Facebook and follow her on Twitter and Instagram at MegMeekerMD. As a reminder, go to MegMeekerMD.com and sign up for her newsletter for giveaway opportunities and updates. And don't forget to share the podcast, write us a review, and click subscribe so you won't miss an episode.